revealed the sinister truth of my 1998 deep-sea mission that haunted me for 25 years. The ocean had secrets. Dark, twisted secrets that I thought I'd left behind. But as I walked the fog-choked streets of my hometown, I could feel it stirring beneath the surface. If only I had known what awaited us that fateful summer night in '98, if only I had listened when the shadows whispered warnings. Now, at 45, returning feels like walking into a living nightmare, where the haunting memories of my vanished crewmates claw at my sanity. I'd been an idealistic marine biologist, dreaming of uncovering the mysteries of the deep. Instead, I had come face to face with something monstrous. My heart races as I glance at the diner, a flickering neon sign barely illuminating its weathered facade, much like the memories that plague me. Inside, laughter echoes, each chuckle like a knife twisting in my gut. Familiar faces mask their fear. They murmur about disappearances and chilling occurrences tied to the depths, feeding a growing sense of dread. I push through the door, the familiar chime ringing hollow. The mural on the wall grabs my attention, a vibrant depiction of the sea, distorted now, haunted by twisting shapes that seem alive. I can feel the energy shift. The locals glance my way, their whispers tinged with suspicion. The more I settle in, the more I sense their discomfort. I can feel their fear, wrapping around me like a cold shroud. Before I continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Chilled by their stares, I wind my way through memories, finding nothing more than shadows. My mentor, once a beacon of hope, now a congressman entwined in a web of deceit. The accident, no, the cover-up had festered like an infection. It's worse than I thought. Whispers of a cult dredging up nightmares I hoped to forget. They're out there, waiting, calling to the depths, and I can feel them closing in. I shake off the feeling, searching for clarity in the clutter of my mind. Buried in dusty boxes, I come across relics of the past, an old conch shell, cracked and stained. My gut twists. The map I used during our mission, too. Distorted, markings resembling the symbols from my nightmares. The locals talk of those who dive too deep. What have I done? The dive rattles in my skull, a rhythmic thrum that seems to echo from the dark waters just beyond town's edge. I stagger outside, the mist thick and suffocating, as if the ocean were reaching for me. And then, a figure stands at the shoreline, eyes glimmering with something akin to madness. I gasp. An unholy chill races down my spine. The townspeople whisper, they've returned. A surge of panic grips me. They came back for me. The ocean wasn't just the end, it was alive. I stumble away, heart pounding, and feel an irresistible pull toward the truth, my only choice, to confront the abyss or escape into the night. Darkness veils my vision, and as I turn to flee, the haunting sounds swell, terrorizing me with the realization that this time, I may never escape. Darkness clawed at the edges of my mind as I ran. The sound of waves seemed to surge with a sinister pulse, a heartbeat from the depths calling for something unnameable. The damp air wrapped around me, heavy with the scent of salt and despair. I glanced back at the figure on the shoreline, its silhouette flickering against the dying light. Was it one of my crew? Or something worse, something born from the horrors we had unearthed? My feet pounded on the pavement, my breath coming in frantic gasps. I needed answers, but fear tightened around my throat like a vice. I ducked into an alley, hoping to escape the whispers that seemed to echo my rising dread. But even in the seclusion, shadows lurked, grinning at my panic. Stay away, I murmured to myself, but the plea barely rose above a whisper. The words felt hollow, like a promise I couldn't keep. I began to remember the stories of previous sailors, those who ventured too far into the ocean's maw and never returned. The cult they spoke of didn't just worship the deep, they prayed for its dark gifts. What had we awakened? Scratching noises came from the shadows, the sound of something scuttling, something not quite human. My heart raced faster. I turned and stumbled into a tangle of rubbish. Pushing myself up, I caught my breath, trying to calm the chaos tearing through me. I needed to think. The diner had felt wrong, always buzzing with uneasy laughter. Inescapable tension lurked behind those smiles. But why? I took a moment to compose myself and then sprinted toward the docks. A dark shape loomed, the old research vessel barely visible through the mist. Memories, now tinged with dread, flooded back the salty air, the excitement mingled with foreboding, unsure of what we might find below. The boat stood still, beckoning me as if it had a life of its own. My hand trembled as I reached for the rusted ladder that led to the deck. With each step, memories flickered like dying fireflies, illuminating the moments before we lost everything. Aboard, I was overcome by an overwhelming sense of violation. The very structure of the boat felt wrong. The walls seemed to pulse, echoing with whispers that warned me to turn back. Inside the cabin, scattered papers were strewn about like fallen leaves, a chaotic tapestry of our doomed mission. It was a graveyard of forgotten dreams, but one object caught my eye. My dive suit, slick with water and staining the floor dark. I leaned closer, a chill washing over me as I noticed a dark handprint smeared across the visor, a sign, perhaps, of what had lived in my place. Something clicked in my mind. Could my crewmates still be down there, trapped in that endless dark? Were they waiting, morphing into the very horror I had been fleeing? Tension made my hands shake. I had to know the truth, even if it led me back into the abyss. Then, an unearthly howl echoed through the water, a sound that sent icy fingers creeping up my spine. It was a call, a signal. It reached for me, urging me to dive back into the depths where destiny awaited, or where nightmares truly lived. That I gripped the counter for support, the decision looming large. To dive or not to dive. Facing whatever lurked below felt like madness, yet the pull was undeniable, intensifying with every ragged breath. What lay beneath? Could the answers, and perhaps my crew, still be down there, waiting for someone to break the silence of the ocean? As the howl resonated once more powerful, more desperate, I inhaled deeply. I had to go back. I had to confront the horror. With racing heart and trembling hands, I stepped toward the hatch, wondering what price the ocean demanded for its secrets, and if I would even return. The hatch creaked ominously as I pulled it open. Cold air rushed out, mixing with the musty scent of the cabin, suffocating me with memories of panic and dread. I hesitated, heart pounding like a sledgehammer. An urge to flee collided with an insatiable need for answers that I peered into the darkness below. The ladder descended into the void, echoing my fears. The howl swelled again, filling my ears with a despairing promise. My mind raced. If I didn't go now, would I ever find the truth? Or would that figure on the shore claim me next? With a deep breath, I gripped the rungs. Each step down felt like stepping deeper into hell. The cold metal of the ladder bit into my palms, reminding me I was still alive. But for how long? As I reached the bottom, I flicked on my flashlight, the beam cutting through the thick darkness. It illuminated the familiar contours of our dive equipment, just like I remembered. But the air felt thicker here, charged with a malevolence that made my skin crawl. My heart raced as I scanned the corners of the small compartment. Nothing moved, but the silence screamed. "Guys," I called, my voice shaking. No reply, only the sound of water softly lapping against the hull. I turned off the flashlight, plunging into darkness. The unseen weight of the ocean above pressed down on me, and I could feel my conviction wavering. The memory of the day we first descended consumed me like a tide. The excitement, the thrill. We were explorers, and the ocean was our frontier. But now, that same ocean felt like a predator, ready to swallow me whole. That I took a moment to steady myself, the still air heavy with anticipation. Something rustled to my left. I spun around, flashlight flickering back on. Nothing, just a pile of our gear. But the unease lingered, gnawing at my stomach as I crouched down, inspecting the diving gear scattered like warnings. My breath hitched at the sight of bloodied fins tangled among the ropes. They weren't mine. Panic surged. I stumbled back, my mind racing through unspeakable possibilities. Where were they? I needed to find them. I couldn't leave them behind. A sudden splash echoed from beyond the hull's threshold, sharp and jarring. My instincts screamed at me to run, but terror held my feet firmly planted. "Hello," I shouted into the oppressive silence. No reply came but the creeping dread that snaked through my veins. The howl from earlier reverberated from the depths once more, louder, more anguished. It resonated with unbearable longing and madness. I squinted into the abyss, where shadows twisted and undulated. I was not alone. The MY flashlight flickered as I moved, straining against the thickening shadows. Shapes writhed in the darkness, flickering just out of light's reach, taunting me that I had to go in. I had to understand what I was up against. Could my crewmates be trapped, forced to join whatever that was lurking below? The water lapped against the hull, cooling my resolve. I couldn't ignore the call. I took a step back, debating if I was strong enough to face the terror waiting beneath. Before I could make a choice, a flash of movement jerked my attention. Something was rising, glistening and grotesque. The moment froze. Time bent as my breath hitched. What emerged was more than I could bear. I had no idea what it was. But one thing was clear. I was running out of time. What awaited me in that water, and would I be able to turn back? A surge of icy water flared against my legs as the shape pushed further from the depths, reflecting the light in a flash of scales and teeth. My heart thundered in my chest, choking any rational thought. This wasn't just any marine life. This was something twisted, something wrong. It breached the surface, a nightmare given form. A long, serpentine body, covered in dripping, dark scales. Countless eyes blinked in unison, peering into my soul, seeking, what? I couldn't breathe. My thoughts raced back to the tales we'd joked about at the bar, stories of cursed ships and ocean spirits. Was this fantasy now my reality? My instincts screamed for me to flee, but I was glued to the spot. Then it lunged, snapping its maw inches from my face. I stumbled back, narrowly avoiding its jagged jaws. The adrenaline coursed through me, igniting a primal flight response. I had to escape. But where? The only way out was up that rickety ladder with that thing lurking just below. The metallic tang of fear flooded my mouth. I turned, the flashlight flickering against the walls like a stuttering heartbeat. Shadows danced, swirling in the corners, each twist hinting at madness. Were they real? Jason, Lily. My voice trembled, breaking in the thick haze of dread. Silence swallowed my cries whole. I gripped the ladder, feeling the cold steel beneath my palms, and began to climb, desperate to reach the light above. But the moment the light shone again, I hesitated. My body screamed at me to look down, to see what was chasing me. I turned just in time to catch a glimpse of the abyss. The creature was there, undulating, its form shifting unnaturally as if not bound by the laws of the ocean. It emitted a low, growling moan that rattled through my core, vibrating like a death toll. With every agonizing heartbeat, I ascended, feeling the searing gaze of the beast bore into my back. The sound of its splashes rose and fell, like a predator closing in. The hatch was close now, but did I dare reach for it? My muscles twitched, caught between flight and fear that a terrifying thought pierced my frenzy. What if Jason and Lily had already succumbed to it? What if they were part of the darkness below now, joining whatever cursed the depths? A cold shudder ran through me. Just then, the light above flickered, a dim warning, as if something were trying to block my escape. I glanced up, dread pooling in my stomach. The only semblance of shelter was the safety of the hatch. I could see it, the rusted comfort of familiarity, almost close enough to touch. With a final burst of strength, I lunged. My hands grabbed the edge, pulling myself upwards even as the water roared below, desperate for my return. As my feet found the floor of the cabin, the howl escalated into a furious wail, the sorrow of countless lives entwined in that chilling sound. But the crush of water was relentless. It surged against the hull, echoing with rage. I turned, heart pounding against the threshold of insanity. The splash was louder now, sounding like the laughter of ghosts. Where were Jason and Lily? The cabin began to shake, the very foundation groaning under the wrath of the ocean. I realized then, it wasn't just the creature that hunted me. I was trapped in a nightmare stringing me along. The ocean wanted something more than my body. It craved souls. As I slammed the hatch shut, a darkness pooled behind me. Fear and resignation washed over me. Could I face whatever had claimed my crew? The echoes of whispers filled the air, rising with the swell of the water. I could feel the call of the deep, seductive in its promise. And just like that, in the grip of that fear, a chilling truth emerged. What if the ocean had no intention of letting me leave? What if it had already marked me as its next? I slammed the hatch shut, the metal clanging like a death knell. The instant the latch clicked, the cabin plunged into a chilling silence. But that tranquility was deceptive. Outside, the water thrashed against the hull, a deafening roar demanding entry. I fumbled for my flashlight, its beam flickering weakly as if it sensed the dread swirling around me. I could hear it. Something was slithering just outside the door, its sinuous body scraping against the metal like nails drawn across a chalkboard. I pressed my back against the hatch, heart racing, breath shallow. What do? The words echoed in my mind. I needed to think, but every shadow danced with madness. With one last desperate sweep of the beam, I scanned the cabin. The dim light revealed our supplies, a couple of flashlights, food rations long expired, and my dive gear still strewn in a chaotic pile. Then the memories came crashing back. Jason's laughter, Lily's playful banter. They'd wanted to explore those underwater caves. We thought it'd be an adventure, a tale to tell. Now, they were perhaps part of that nightmare below, lost to whatever curse had claimed our ship. Suddenly, the water surged again, crashing against the hull like a colossal fist. The cabin shook, throwing me against the wall. I stumbled, catching my breath, realizing I needed to act fast. Fumbling, I grabbed the dive gear. Maybe, just maybe, the trunks could provide a means to escape. The thought struck me then. The emergency escape hatch on the top deck. If I could reach it, I could keep the darkness at bay longer. I wouldn't just be trapped here. I moved toward the door, every step a gamble on my sanity. But the moment I gripped the handle, it shuddered beneath my touch. Something pressed against the other side, heavy and relentless. I twisted the knob hard, feeling the resistance as if the very ocean clutched at me. I forced it open, heart leaping into my throat. The open door revealed a scene from a horror film, a mass of black water rippling with a malevolent grace, as if it were alive. I hesitated, the terror swirling in my gut, but I couldn't let fear dictate my next move. I had to push through. I darted outside, adrenaline fueling me. The salty air filled my lungs, the taste of it mixed with grave dread. But the deck was a nightmare itself. The ocean, agitated and dark, splashed against the railing, droplets mingling with something far worse. I felt it before I saw it, a sinister shadow coiling beneath the surface, rising, pulling the water with it. That I didn't look back. I couldn't. Instead, I raced towards the hatch that led to safety, lungs burning as the cold wind whipped against my skin, lashing with every step. I was free until the roar grew cyclical, a pattern that felt more sinister than before. In an instant, a splash erupted beside me. I turned, pulse racing, as that monstrous form erupted from the depths. Its eyes, countless, unblinking, bore into me with unsettling clarity. In that moment, I understood it wasn't just a creature, but a manifestation of the ocean's hunger, wanting me to join the lost. My eyes darted desperately across the narrow space. Where was Jason? Where was Lily? My mind spiraled, racing between salvation and the eternal grasp of the depths. Then out of the corner of my eye, a flicker of movement on the edge of the deck caught my attention. Something was emerging. Someone? I squinted, breath hitching. Jason? But the figure that stepped out of the shadows was a reflection of horror. It wasn't Jason. It was something far worse, something I had hoped to never witness again. A reminder of the curse that cursed us all. I barely had time to process as I heard the unmistakable sound of teeth clacking behind me. The ocean wasn't finished with me yet. What did it want? I was only beginning to understand the true cost of its craving. The figure stepped into the dim light, revealing a visage twisted by suffering. It looked like Jason, but in a way that was so grotesque my stomach churned. His eyes, once vibrant and alive, were now hollow, drowning in infinite sorrow, devoid of color. He grinned, showcasing teeth that were sharpened and jagged, glistening like shattered glass, dripping from unknown sources. "Help me," he croaked, the words slithering from his mouth like venom. "Jason, is that you?" My voice trembled, disbelief clawing at my rational mind. I could barely comprehend his form, shadows flickering across his skin as if he were partly submerged in water, struggling against the pull of the dark depths. Around us, the ocean churned violently, each wave a torment. A chorus of whispers rose from the depths, chanting his name in a twisted symphony. My heart raced. What was left of my mind battled against the realization that it wasn't just Jason before me, but something far darker, an echo of a soul torn from existence. "Join us," he beckoned, his voice now drenched with a foreboding urgency, as if the ocean itself were conspiring with him, a siren luring me into a fatal embrace. I staggered back, choking on the salty air. Above us, thunder rumbled, but it wasn't the storm on the horizon that caused my heart to drop. It was the sheer terror etched into Jason's features, a warning seeping through that grotesque smile. Fear turned my bones to ice as he reached a hand towards me, fingers elongated and twitching. Before I could react, the monstrous shadow beneath the waves surged upward, twisting and bubbling in a frenzy. The water splashed against the deck, splattering my legs with cold dread. The thing sought a glimpse of its prey, while the rain began to fall, mingling with the ocean's roar. That I knew then, in that cursed moment, what the ocean desired. It consumed, devoured my friends, and now it wanted me. It promised freedom, but I recognized that in its embrace lay only despair. That I twisted away, heart pounding like a war drum. "No," I shouted, desperation giving me strength as I dashed toward the other side of the deck. But the wind howled, mocking my attempt. I glanced back at Jason, his face contorted, begging, yet terrifying, teeth clicking faster, his mouth agape, churning with darkness that wanted to swallow me whole. As I ran, I could feel the deck tremble beneath my desperate strides, like the ocean itself was shuddering at my movements. An unbearable weight pressed down, a darkness creeping at the edges of my vision, hungry for my demise. Just ahead, the aft of the ship loomed, beckoning me toward the escape ladder. My fingers grazed the slick metal rungs, but in that moment, I froze. The clattering of teeth grew louder, a horrifying choir led by Jason's shrieks. They echoed with unspeakable agony, each click a reminder that time was draining away. I glanced over my shoulder. The abyss churned wildly. Whatever dwelled below was rising, a mass of thrashing limbs and slithering bodies, ready to ensnare me in its watery grip. The horror surfaced, gaping maw wide open, teeth glistening with the reflections of unholy light. There was no time. Climbing fast, I prayed for solidarity, a farewell to my old life. But just as I reached the top, I felt a cold grip wrapping around my ankles, pulling me back down into the malevolent embrace of the sea. With a final scream, the world shifted, debauchery swirling around me. I clung to the last remnant of hope as the tendrils dragged me deeper into the swirling void. And in that darkness, I swore I heard Jason's voice one last time. Join us. What awaited me in that abyss? The answer lurked just beyond my grasp, entwined with the curse of our madness. The darkness enveloped me, cold and suffocating, but somehow, a part of me refused to submit. I fought against the weight pressing down, my lungs screaming for air as the shadows twisted and coiled around me. Jason's voice echoed in my mind like a haunting refrain, the siren's call edging closer, begging me to yield to despair. I thrashed wildly, a desperate attempt to break free from the grip of the abyss. Each movement sent a surge of panic coursing through me, blinding me further to the horror lurking just beyond my reach. Murphy's law had prevailed. I had traded the comforts of life for the horror of the depths. I felt something brush against my leg, a slick, slithering sensation that sent a spike of terror through my spine. It wasn't just the abyss that held me captive. No, whatever lay in wait was reaching for me, seeking to pull me down into eternal darkness. I kicked, my foot connecting with something hard. A flicker of hope washed over me for a moment, but just as quickly, my reality crashed back. The darkness pulsed, breathing life into its grotesque inhabitants, twisted appendages breaking through the surface, reaching with urgency. My heart hammered in my chest. I had become a target, prey in this monstrous underwater world. What had once been a desperate struggle for freedom turned into an instinctive drive for survival. I clawed upwards, arms flailing as my vision narrowed. I could almost see the light above, shimmering like salvation. But fingers, long and grotesque, clutched at my waist, tugging me back toward the abyss. "Let go!" I screamed, the sound swallowed by the wrapping void. With a surge of adrenaline, I managed to shake off the grasp, shooting towards the surface, abandoning all sense of direction. The faint sound of Jason's voice lingered, urging me back, pulling me towards a fate I simply couldn't accept. I burst through the waves, gasping with a mixture of salt and air. The storm waged above, rain slashing at my skin like knives. Desperately, I floundered, flinging my arms as I fought to stay afloat, adrenaline turning my limbs into lead. Then, the sight of the ship snapped back into focus, a chaotic refuge against the raging chaos of the storm. The deck, now a battleground of survival, beckoned. Each ragged breath brought clarity. I had to escape. The thought consumed me and tore me from the grasp of despair, but as I dragged myself closer, reality punched me. Jason stood at the rail, an eerie calmness possessing his features. The rain cascaded down his face, washing away the remnants of horror, revealing a smile too wide, too knowing. "You don't have to fear me," he called, voice sweet as poison. "Stay with me," I stumbled, my mind racing, heart pounding. The thunder cracked like a whip, and in that split second of hesitation, a shadow surged from the depths, swarming towards the ship like ravenous piranhas. The echoes of my friends, lifeless voices, clawed at my sanity. "Save us," they cried, a mantra mingling with the sound of the tempest. "Jason," I cried, scrambling to my feet as I fought against the sting of memories clawing their way back. The throne of darkness loomed behind him, a vortex of terror, a pulsating reminder of the fate that bided its time below. "I can free you," Jason begged, his voice now laced with urgency. "Don't leave me again." The deck vibrated, more than the storm had a right to. Something wicked rose from the depths, darker than a funeral shroud, seething with malevolence. My heart raced, but my legs stood rooted, body caught between the horror and the promise of the abyss. "Choose," Jason said, his grin impossibly widening as the darkness coiled tighter around the ship. Would I join him? What awaited me down in that murky hell? I had to decide before the darkness reached and snatched me once more. But could I trust Jason? And what price would I pay if I did? The choice closed in, a blinding terror pressing against my very being. The darkness around the ship shuddered, alive and eager, as Jason's pleading eyes held my gaze. My pulse thundered in my ears, every instinct screaming to flee, yet the twisted web of his voice ensnared me. The storm raged, but it felt like the chaos beneath the surface was mirrored in the very depths of Jason's soul that I shuffled back, my feet slipping on the slick deck as wood creaked ominously. Around us, a cacophony of thunder and water roared. Each wave crashed against the hull like a warning, urging me to run. But how could I abandon him? The part of me that had once adored him now cringed in terror. "Jason, what are you?" I choked out, my voice drowning in the rain. "I told you, I can help you." His smile twisted, morphing into something more sinister with every word. "You just have to let go of your fears." "Fears?" I gasped. "You're the reason for them." Behind him, something thrashed in the water, dark tendrils breaking the surface. I felt the ground beneath shift. The ship trembled as if it were a living entity, caught in a fatal dance with the horror below. Suddenly, Jason stepped forward, hypnotic in his allure. "Don't you see? I'm no longer shackled to those memories of pain. You can join me. We can be free together." His outstretched hand gleamed in the sporadic flashes of lightning. It looked inviting, but the darkness held a different story. The shadows behind him writhed, restless tendrils searching, grabbing for anything or anyone in range. As I stared at his extended fingers, the truth nagged at the edges of my mind, memories flooding back from that cursed deep-sea mission. I remembered the darkness swallowing my crew, one by one, their agonizing cries lost to the depths. Had Jason been a part of that? Had he lured them into the abyss like a siren's song? Thunder cracked louder, making me jump. Panic forced my body into action, every instinct screaming to swim away, to escape. Something wrapped around my ankle, a cold grip that sent icy chills through me. In the murky water, the lurking horror was no longer abstract. It was right at my feet, pulling me down. With desperation, I wrenched free, stumbling onto the deck. "You're not real," I shouted, my breath hitching. "You died." His laughter twisted through the wind like a gnarled branch scraping against glass. "Did I?" he questioned, voice layered with darkness. "Or have I become something greater?" Each heartbeat felt like a countdown. I couldn't remain trapped in his toxic charm. I had to choose. "I want to succumb to you, Jason. I refuse." Just then, The storm roared with renewed fury. The sea churned and spat, waves crashing against the ship as the grotesque figures surged closer, dim shapes with twisted faces and gaping mouths, begging, wailing for release. They were my friends, but twisted by agony, their eyes dark wells of despair. "Save us," they croaked simultaneously, a terrible echo of their once vibrant selves. I recoiled and looked back at Jason. His face had become hauntingly blank, a mask of anger and desperation. "Join me. I can save you from this." But his outstretched hand now felt like a noose. The realization washed over me. I couldn't save anyone if I lost myself. Suddenly, the ship tilted violently underfoot, throwing me off balance as I teetered dangerously close to the edge. Panic surged again. I could either take Jason's hand and slide into oblivion or fight back against the darkness, against the memories, and against Jason himself. The shadows under the ship roiled, ready and waiting. In that heartbeat, I knew what I had to do. But as I braced myself for my next move, I felt a sudden pull. Something cold and slick dragged me backward, and Jason's voice rose over the din. Infuriated, "You can't escape me. You're mine." I screamed, muscles straining, desperation consuming me as I fought against both the tide and his grasp, knowing that whatever lay ahead in this tempest would determine if I'd live or drown forever. What would win, the darkness or my will to fight back? The answer was lurking just beneath the surface, and the storm wasn't finished with me yet. I clawed at the wet planks of the ship's deck, the rain lashing against me like 1,000 tiny whips. The pull of the darkness was relentless, each wave of icy water a persistent reminder of what waited below. Jason's face twisted into a mask of fury, and I could almost feel the weight of his disappointment pressing down on me. "Why are you fighting?" he shouted, his voice dripping with disdain. "You belong here." As if to punctuate his words, a shadow broke the surface, its massive form churning just beyond the boat's edge. My instincts screamed for me to look away, but I forced my gaze downward. There, rising up from the depths, were faces I recognized all too well, my crew members, their bodies distorted and rotting, their mouths wide in silent screams. "They're gone, Jason," I cried, tears mingling with the rain. "You can't bring them back." "They're not gone," he yelled back, desperation spilling from his lips. "They're waiting for you. Don't you see? They're free too, just like me." The ship lurched again, and with a grunt, I propelled myself away from the edge, feeling the merciless grip of the shadows recede as I staggered toward the center of the deck. The storm howled, waves crashing against the hull, lapping at my heels like a ravenous beast eager to drag me under. I had to push through. I had to resist. "I won't let you do this," I spat, forcing the words through clenched teeth. Fear clutched at my throat, but I forced myself to stand tall, even as my legs trembled. Jason stepped closer, his voice now low and conspiratorial. "You can't fight what you are, my love. We're two halves of the same soul. Embrace it." The storm seemed to pause, holding its breath, and for a moment, I let myself remember the Jason I used to know, the quirky, charming man who had a laugh that could fill a room. I wanted to believe in him again, but that flicker of hope smothered under the weight of reality. He wasn't just Jason anymore. He was a beast, a vessel of darkness and despair. "Your soul is tainted, and I can save you," he barked, eyes blazing with malevolent energy. "Join me, and you'll feel no pain, only freedom. You can save them too." With that last word, the grotesque shapes surged closer to the surface, their voices rising in a chorus of despair. "Join us, save us," their cries echoed through the storm, piercing my heart with a spear of grief. I stumbled, almost giving in to the urge to reach for them, to tell them it was going to be okay. But I could see their emptiness, their torment. It was a trap. "No," I screamed, shaking my head ferociously. The storm responded with a deafening roar, and I could feel the ship begin to tilt again, wheels of fate spinning as the darkness clawed for my resolve. Then I spotted something in the churning water, a glimmer of light, almost like a beacon amidst the chaos. It pulsed, drawing me closer, igniting a flicker of hope in my troubled heart. "What is that?" I thought, scanning the murky waves. Was it salvation, or merely another illusion? Jason's expression shifted to pure rage. "Don't look at it. Look at me, focus on me." But I couldn't tear my eyes away. The light throbbed with an urgency that ignited a flicker of defiance deep within my chest. If Jason truly wanted to consume me, then I had to act fast. As the shadows coiled tighter around my legs, I threw my full weight towards the side of the ship, ready to plunge myself into the water. If I was going to face my fears, I wouldn't do it on his terms. Not here, not now. But just as I prepared to dive, Jason lunged forward, grabbing my wrist with a grip that felt like iron. "You're not leaving. You can't escape me." I felt the pressure of his grip, the very essence of darkness trying to drag me back into the void. But as I fought against him, the pulsing light called to me, more enticing than it had been a moment ago. The question throbbed in my mind, could this light save me? Or was it yet another layer of the trap? The storm hung in the balance, as did my fate. In that fleeting moment, I had to choose. Allow Jason to pull me back into the depths or plunge into the unknown, guided by the light that could lead me to salvation or doom. What lay beneath that surface? A truth I couldn't avoid much longer was waiting, just a breath away. I was torn between fear and defiance, the duality of my own heart wrapped in a desperate embrace. Jason's grip threatened to crush the very life out of me, but the pulsing light beneath the waves whispered promises of salvation. The shadows writhed around us, dark tendrils grasping at my ankles like a collective despair reaching up from beyond the grave. "No," I shouted, summoning the very essence of my will. "I want to go back. Not with you." With a forceful yank, I broke free from his suffocating grip, while the world around me seemed to blur, a whirlpool of agony and hope. The urgent glow beckoned me, glimmering amidst the chaos like a lighthouse piercing a stormy night that I leaped, cleaving through the water, breaking the icy grip of the abyss that sought to suffocate me. My body plunged into the dark, cold embrace, yet with every stroke, I could feel the light drawing closer. The darkness roared around me, angry at my defiance, curling around my limbs and dragging me down, but I pressed on. The ocean thrashed, lashing wildly against my resolve. I gasped against the stinging salt, a bitter reminder of everything I had lost. "You're mine." Jason's voice boomed from above, riddled with madness and pain. But in that moment, I knew. He wasn't my master. I was the captain of my own fate. The shadows twisted, forming claw-like shapes that clawed at my body, but I focused on that bright light, shining brighter with each heartbeat. I was not surrendering, I was reclaiming. What my crew had endured was not my fault, and I would not allow their sacrifices to be in vain. Finally, I broke the surface, gasping for air, reeking of salt and desperation. The visibility was hazy, but there it was, the source of that blinding glow. It was a shard, the remnants of our mission, part of the very equipment we had used. The submarine beacon, a last thread of hope, connected us to realities beyond the dark. Reaching out, I grasped it firmly, willing myself to believe. In that instant, the abyss shrieked, recoiling as if stung. Jason's frantic silhouette began to blur against the raging waters, a demon stripped of command. "You can't leave me," he screamed, desperation lacing his voice, a haunting reminder of who he had once been. With newfound strength, I kicked my legs furiously, charging toward the surface. The storm raged above me, swallowing me in dread, but I refused to succumb to doubt. As I reached out for the deck, something dark lunged from behind, teeth gnashing, with furious intent. But the light, it surged through me, illuminating every corner of my soul, igniting the fight I thought I had lost. Bursting forth from the water, I hurled myself onto the deck, my heart racing wild with the realization of survival. Jason's anguished scream echoed behind me, but I refused to look back. The wind roared and the waves crashed, but I had tangled with the very essence of despair and emerged whole, refusing to let it claim me. "No," I screamed, my voice mingling with the storm, a defiant anthem of survival. I stumbled backward as the ship shook violently, lightning striking far too close for comfort. But as the storm thundered with rage, it also began to wane. One last surge, and the entity from the depths unleashed its fury, swirling in darkness before it finally dissipated amidst the crashing waves. Gazing out across the chaotic sea, I felt my heart sinking, but not into despair. Instead, it soared. The gravity of what we had uncovered, what I had endured, fell into place. It would haunt me forever, sure, but I still had my life. I still had my freedom. As rain dripped from my soaked hair, I took a shuddering breath, filled with the acrid scent of salt and survival. I had chosen. Surrounded by the remnants of terror, I stood firm. Goodbye, Jason, I whispered into the silent storm. I felt the weight of the darkness minutely lift, and with it, an understanding washed over me. The ocean would always have its secrets, but I was no longer its pawn. As the last of the storm passed, I turned my back to the lingering shadows and walked away from the edge, feeling the dawn breaking on the horizon. I had escaped, but the memories would forever be there. Yet I also carried the strength to keep moving forward. And maybe, just maybe, someday I would find peace. Now, I need you to make a choice, too. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that delve into the unknown. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm. It truly makes a difference. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. This is the moment to show your support.